Hello. Today I want to speak about insurance contracts. Let's assume you have a new car and you drive your car every day and you love your car, you love to drive, and you tell yourself, well, I really made it in life because I have such a lovely car. So you're actually very happy with your car. But then you begin worrying because let's say you don't have a garage, so the car is parked on the street and you think by yourself, well, what if something happens to the car? If an accident happens while it's parked, that would be very bad because the car was quite pricey and I actually took a loan to buy it. And then you begin to get worried and you might not sleep so well anymore. Of course, soon you will have an idea of getting insurance and you will sign an insurance contract, and then again you will feel fine because then you will know, well, not only do I have a wonderful car and I really love to drive with it, I also have insurance. So I really achieved something in life. I got a great car. And you will be happy again and you will sleep well again. So is this a good decision to get insurance for your car? I mean, I'm not speaking about the mandatory insurance you have to have. I'm speaking about extra insurance. So basically, an insurance company has a lot of stuff usually, and all of this stuff gets a salary, of course. They also have huge office buildings, very impressive office buildings normally, and they make a good profit usually. So the stocks are traded very highly because they make such good profits. So where does the money come from? Of course, the money comes from the clients, because on average they pay less money back than a client pays them. So when you pay a certain amount every month for your car insurance, on average you will get less money back if something happens, or if not something happens, if you calculate the probabilities correctly. Or let's say if 1,000 people get this insurance, and in 10 years you have a look what they got out of that insurance, it will be much less than they actually paid, of course. Otherwise the insurance company couldn't work properly. So how do they do that? Well, they analyze probabilities. So they analyze for a typical driver, a typical car owner, what are the chances that certain things happen. And then they eliminate everything which is very likely to happen. And they include all the cases which are not very likely to happen. Let's say the glass of your car breaks. And it is very unlikely that this happens because of wind. It happens very rarely. But it's very likely that it happens if somebody breaks it or if you have an accident. Then they will include in the contract that the break of glass is covered if it happens by wind, for example. And that's how they do it. That's how they create the contract. And when you read the contract carefully and you see everything which is covered, you get the impression, wow, so much stuff is covered, that's really a great insurance. Because you don't know about the probability that this happens, and usually you also don't have a list of things which could happen to you and then check out everything if it's covered or not. That's usually not the case. So, and if you have an agent of the insurance who negotiates with you, of course he might tell you stuff which sounds very good, but some of this is not included in the contract, of course. So yeah, That's how they create the contracts. And there is also another thing. Should something happen to your car, very likely it's not covered, but if it's covered, let's assume it would be covered by your insurance, usually the normal insurance company still doesn't want to pay in that case. So some have the policy that they ignore usually every first letter which is written to them. So if something happens to you and you write one letter to the insurance company, it gets ignored because they know a certain amount of clients give up after the first letter. They either ignore it or they write to you that it's not covered without looking into it. They just write to you this is not covered by the insurance because they hope that the clients who anyway have the money will give up, many of them. So it's a good policy to reduce their spendings. And only the clients who write a second letter, they might get an analysis if the damage is covered or not. So this is another measure some insurance companies take. Okay, but you will say, well, however, I'm really happy since I have this insurance. And that is also something to be seen. I mean, the cover of damages usually is not the thing the insurance companies sell you. They sell you a feeling of safety. They sell you a feeling. Even if you don't have a real good cover of possible cases which could happen to your car, you have the impression that you got that. You feel good again. You sleep well again. And maybe because you're not so concerned anymore, nothing will happen anyway. Because often it is like when you're afraid that something could happen, something will happen. So actually it's something positive which the insurance company sells you. It's a feeling of safety and that you don't have to have any worries. And this is the deal. But if really something happens, very often clients have to struggle and have to maybe fight with the insurance company to get their money. So you have to keep that in mind if you go for a contract. The alternative would be to have a standing order to pay actually what the contract would cost to your own savings account. So every month you're paying to the savings account, and should something happen to your car, you could pay this, the fixing of the case from this savings account. Of course, if the money is enough, but if nothing should happen after some years, you would still have all this money. So this is an alternative. I would recommend to take an insurance contract only in one case, if it is more likely that something happens to you, which is covered, than to the average person. Let's say you're using something much more often than the average person. Let's say you're using your car very extremely and you drive very fast or very unsecure, and you know that. Of course, it's not a great example, but let's assume that, and you make sure before signing that certain thing is covered, which you consider to be very likely, then it's a good thing, because then your chances that this case happens are much higher than they calculate when they set up the contract. And in such a case, when your risk is significantly higher and you know about that, and you know for sure that it's covered, then you can enter an insurance contract. I think also financially in a good way. Otherwise, I think you mostly buy a feeling when you enter such a contract. You buy a feeling, but the cover you really get for your money usually is not worth what you pay for it. Thank you very much for watching.